Hey everybody, Garcia here, and today we're going to be traveling to the forest and fighting cooperatively for justice in The Adventures of Robin Hood. In this game, the players are going to be working together, moving their figures around, trying to complete some objectives set forth by the chapter they're playing. The game comes with a book, this book right here, and this book is going to have the chapters in it, the story of the game, and what you are trying to do. And obviously, there's going to be, spoilers in the book, so I'm not going to show you the book. I'm not going to show you except for a couple of pages early on. But that's the general idea in the game. Move your figures around, fight guards, talk to people in town, and achieve whatever it is you are trying to do. Find a location, interact with someone specifically, avoid the guards, that sort of thing, and do all that on the clock, trying to not run out of time. So that's what's happening. We're going to go ahead and take a look at what the board looks like. I'll show you how the general flow of the game goes, what a turn might look like, and then we'll come back up here and I'll tell you what I think of it. The game is an adventure game. It uses this book here to go through different chapters and to tell you the story within the game. So I'm going to be avoiding, obviously, showing you anything inside that book or going over any specifics. I'm simply showing you the way the game flows, okay? So the general idea is the players are represented by these wooden figures on the map. You've got another wooden figure just like it and 3 movement figures, 2 short ones that are identical and 1 long one there. And you're going to be moving around the board trying to achieve whatever this chapter is asking you to achieve. Trying to get somewhere, talk to someone, break into something, that kind of thing. So the general flow is as follows, okay? You are going to shake up the bag. You're going to draw out one of the discs in the bag, and then it'll be that player's turn. So you can just set this aside, and that player is going to go. They are allowed to use these to move somewhere. So let's say they need to go up here somewhere. So you can abut this to your figure there. You can use this one connecting to that one. And I could use this one connecting to that one. And drop off where my new location is. And then remove the rest of this from the board. And so I have moved, okay? That's my new location now. You cannot go through features, can't go through buildings or stones or what have you. The forest can go through that. But a big part of the game is ending up in the shadows. And so you'll see shadowed areas are places where you'll be hidden from guards that are around the board, all right? And then once that's done, that player has taken their turn, then they can take an action, which is over here. This is the breakdown, so move. If you did not use your long piece, you get to save your strength and take one of these white cubes and throw it into the bag. And then you get to take an action. The action is one of 2 things until later on in the game where they can, open up a few things. But for right now, one of 2 things. You can attack a guard or you can investigate something you are touching. And that is any tile on the board that has a question mark. You're going to read an entry in the book, and you might be pulling this tile out and flipping it over, okay? Basically, the board is covered in these tiles, and many of them will be flipping back and forth over. So, for example, these tiles here, like this one here with this shape, is a guard. And these are some you learn about very early on in the game. So I'll just go ahead and flip that over. So there is a guard in this clearing here, denoted by, the edge of the buildings and the shadows. So I'll leave them face up for when the turn comes around and they would activate. And then once that's done, like I said, we go in the bag, we pull out the next one, and we pull out another disc. Okay, now it's yellow, so that player's going to take their turn. They're over here, and perhaps they're going to go, they'll go here, 1, they'll do that for 2, they'll do that for 3, and they are now touching this tile with this character here, which has a question mark, so I would read the entry in the book and interact with that person and remove the rest of this. When all the tiles have gone through the bag, there will be some sort of upkeep in the book, and then you throw them all back in and you play through that bag again. That's the general sequence. Now, when the red disc comes up, like so, then the book again will tell you what happens. Generally speaking, the guards are going to capture anyone in their clearing. So if this character is over here in this clearing, that guard is face up there, they are going to be captured and placed laying down on top of that guard. Whenever you have a turn come up again, you can fight them. You can't move because you're captured. Or if somebody is simply in an area with a guard and you move, and you land on the guard, then you can just attack them. To attack, you're going to draw cubes from the bag until you can draw up to 3. If you get a purple one, let me find a purple one. There we go. If we pull a purple one, you just set it out of the bag and you can pull again. And again, you can do this up to 3 times. If you get a white one, then you win and you defeat that character. Everything you pulled is out of the bag. You just throw it back in the supply. And then this card has been defeated. You're going to flip it over and you're going to put a time. There we go. You're going to put a time marker from beside the board on that piece to make sure it doesn't come back too soon, like so. And that's your turn, all right? Now, this over here represents the hope in the land, and you're trying to manage that as well. If it bottoms out, it's going to cost you more of these time tokens that are sitting here. And generally, the way you lose, you just time out, is by running out of these hourglass tokens that are sitting here. Being at 0 usually just goes through them faster, okay? So you're trying to manage this as well. Defeating characters will push it up. Sometimes special events will take it back down. The beginning of a turn might simply tell you to lose 1 per player. So you drop that a few points. So there you go. Obviously, like I said, there are a lot of spaces on the board that you can grab, pull out the cardboard piece, flip it over, and put it back in there. And it'll change something on the board. The artwork will be different on the other side, right? That's largely how the game is going to work. Like I said, the game, though, changes throughout the different chapters. And in fact, there's not really a rule book in this game. You are going to be learning how to play from this book. That first story is going to teach you how to play the game. So you are going to flip over to this. You're going to read an introduction. It's going to show you where to place your characters, which tiles to flip over on the board so you can preset some guards. And then you grab the bag, you pull one, and it tells you what's happening. It tells you a little story and then what to do with it. Once there's no more discs in the bag, first round ends. Flip the page. Okay, you go to the next page. They explain a few new rules, and you keep going like this until that first story is over. And then you'll go to chapter 2, and so forth, okay? So that's how you play the game. It's how you learn how to play. You have to go through that first story to learn how to play. There isn't really a rule book that tells you, do exactly this, in this order, this is what a turn looks like. It's a little bit, not quite free form, but it's sort of how the game expresses itself to the players so that you understand what is happening within it. So there you go. Eventually, you'll be throwing into this bag some tokens as well. Those tokens up there across the top, the seals, those red seals, you'll be throwing them in the bag as well. So there will be cubes and discs and seals in here. And depending on what's happening in the game, you'll just reach in here and pull something, you know. Sometimes it's a disc, sometimes it's a cube, sometimes it's something else. So it's sort of a one-bag system where everything ends up in here. And you use it however the game requires you to use it. That's pretty much that. Having items in the game, sometimes you'll acquire things like a sword or rope, and you'll just denote that. So, you know, if I have this, and I'm playing green, I'll put my cube on it to show that I have that. The game allows for trading sometimes, but again, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to flip over any more of these and just like, say, a guard, the very obvious things that show up immediately. The shadow concept is an important part, the movement, and then fighting, which you've already seen. There you go. Let's go ahead and go back up top. Let me tell you what I think of it, kind of how it feels to play, and who I think this might be good for. So that's The Adventures of Robin Hood. Generally speaking, I think this game is pretty innovative. I think there's a lot of interesting things in here that I have not seen in other games before, or not tackled this way in other games before. But at the end of the day, I didn't really have as much fun with the game as I would have liked. I thought it was not as not as engaging as I was hoping it would be, okay? So, instead of jumping right into my target audience system here, let me talk about the innovations, what I thought of those, and then I'll go over that rundown, okay? So the innovations that are readily apparent. The book, instead of dozens of cards, okay? This is a good idea. I like it. It is a little fiddly managing where these ribbons go. A lot of the book spends time saying, okay, flip to page 22. Now put the gold ribbon here. Now flip over to page 25. Put the red ribbon here. And at the end of that page, it says, great, flip over to the next page and update the red ribbon. And so the ribbons, these two ribbons that are attached to the book, play a big part of sort of knowing where you are. You can go back to the gold one to check current rules. You can go to the red one to check where you are in the story and sort of what's happening next, okay? It's not bad, a little fiddly like I said, but it's a neat idea. And this is a very nice centerpiece to the entire adventure. It thematically helps the whole thing. So that's one cool innovation. One bag for everything is another innovation, which I think works really well. I have no issues with that one whatsoever. It's a single bag, and in there is combat, in there is turn order, in there is the bad guys, and when things come up, that's the seals, okay? So I like that idea. I think that works really well. It's opposed to having dice for combat, cards for the bad guys. It's all just bloop, throw it in there and pull out the corresponding piece. Very nice. Tiles on the board. Everything you're going to encounter is already on the board. You just have to peel off a piece of cardboard and flip it over and put it back down. And now it's a soldier. It's a caravan you can attack. It's a person you talked to and they went away. So now you flip it over and the picture of them is not there. It's a gate that you flip over and now it's a raised gate. Whatever. That's a very cool idea thematically and just sort of to reduce components. This game does a great job of putting a lot, what another game would have a lot of components in order to achieve. This one does it with one board, one big board, right? Unfortunately, I don't like the way it feels. The tactile nature of grabbing a tile, ripping it out of the board, flipping it over, putting it back, especially for the soldiers, like the one I showed you in the overview, you're going to be doing that to each of those soldiers 80 times throughout the campaign, throughout all the chapters. And it takes its toll on the little pieces of cardboard. You're ripping it up, it's starting to fray, you shove it back in there and rip it up again, and put it back in there and flip it and rip it. I mean, it's going to tear things. And so I like it in concept. I don't really love the execution of it. I don't think it feels good to do. Lastly, free-form movement, as opposed to roll to see how far you can go, or move this many spaces. There's no grid overlay on this. It's very free-form. Use your little movement pieces. If you save the big one, you saved your energy, so you get to put a combat cube in the bag. Very nice. I don't love the imprecision of it, right? I don't like that sometimes, especially since they say things like, oh, you can turn your figure sideways if you don't quite reach something, and you just might reach it. It's sometimes you measure something and you are so close to it that you feel like, am I really there? Do I have to wait a whole other turn to go these last 2 millimeters? I'm gonna just say I am there. You know what I mean? I'm gonna feel like I might have gently bumped this figure and it's there. And I always wrestle with those kinds of moments. I find that imprecision annoying. And I guess some people might find that very freeing. And it's cool that you can basically go anywhere, walk through, take whatever path you want to get somewhere. I don't love that kind of thing. If you're a fan of measurement in miniatures games, though, you're not going to have a problem with this, right? So, a lot of innovation, not necessarily handled in ways that I love. That's what I'm saying. So, to break it all down, tear it down here, from the top, the theme and the thematic ties, I think it's a cool theme. I don't think the writing in this book is very good, okay? It might be a great game for kids, and I think it is probably a very good game to play in a mixed age group. Adults with kids playing along. That might be a sweet spot. But for me, the writing felt very by the numbers. There was a lack of elegance here that I was hoping to find, especially because of the theme, and it just isn't there for me. The aesthetics, great artwork on everything. Cardboard punch-outs, like I said, are a great idea, but I don't like the way that they start to fray and they're so tight in their spots. The first few times you rip something up, you're like, oh, God. You know, that doesn't feel great. But artwork is beautiful and everything, and there's very few components. The components in here are nice. A couple of the wooden figures are a little top-heavy, but not a big deal. Replay value is good. It's a one-shot, but there's a lot of chapters, and there is a sort of like a Game Plus mode in it. So that works well. I have no problem with that. The game arc, the events that are happening in the game because of the different chapters do keep the story interesting. Though, to be fair, the game flow, the gameplay, is generally the same. Move, avoid being captured by the guards, and go towards whatever they're telling you to go towards. Or, like, discover something. That can be fun the first time. Once you know where something is and you're looking for it again, then you know where it is. You know, one of them is like, well, find right now where there's a secret hideout. Yet someone in town knows where there's a secret hideout. And that first time through that chapter, where you're not sure who would know this, is interesting. Then you eventually find it. It's a very cool reveal. That's all nice. But, of course, once you've done that once, you know who to talk to and where the thing is hidden. So there is that as well. There's also the fact that if you play with fewer than 4 players, you are leaving a lot of the possibilities for discovery and stuff on the board on the floor, right? If you only play with Robin Hood, then you are missing the story for the 3 other characters. And I think this one is definitely best at 4, just because you get to experience all of it, even if you're not the character or the player playing that character. You know, Maid Marian is going to have to go over here to this part of town and talk to someone standing in front of this building. None of that would have happened if Maid Marian wasn't one of the characters playing. So there is that. Ease of play, very good, okay? They managed to streamline this game. And that's one thing that this game does perfectly. It almost feels like an experimental exercise in streamlining, in taking a game that might have been decks of cards, dice, grid overlay, all of this stuff, and just peeling back every one of those layers. How can we simplify having all these cards? Book. How can we simplify having a grid for movement? Free-form movement with these little measuring sticks. Great. Distance combat. There's a wooden arrow in there. If the wooden arrow reaches somebody, boom, you can hit them by drawing cubes from a bag. So it feels experimental in many ways, right? And it manages to do that well, and the game is very smooth and easy to play. Follow along in the book, pull out a token, take your turn, go, you know, and interact with something. Then lastly, tactics, luck, and strategy. The game's got a good amount of luck, but it almost feels like a game about avoiding and or taking risks. That is a big part of what's going on in the game. Fighting the clock, that's another big part in the game, right? It's about seeding the bag with white cubes to combat the purple cubes, which are the bad ones. It's about, slowing down with your movement so that you can save strength for an upcoming fight, but you're slowing down on the map. It's about making sure you don't run out of time by having that hope drop down or just taking too many rounds, too many turns. So, there's all that. And of course, it does build throughout the chapters. You're going to unlock special abilities for the characters, minor things, but they're there. You're going to unlock new tokens that get thrown into the bag, and when you pull that, it gives the player of your choice a turn, or it gives every player a turn, and you can take those in whatever order you want to. So there are things that balloon up, but generally, it's, do you want to avoid a risk, or do you want to take a risk and hurry up? That's the way it feels, right? So luck management is the primary vibe in the game, primarily how it feels. And then a little exploration the first time you play through it. To be fair, I don't know how many people are going to play through this entire campaign, so to speak, and then immediately want to go through it again. I don't think that's going to be a thing, but you could with that Game Plus mode, right? So there you go. I I think it's a cool idea, this game, and I think it is very innovative. If you're looking for something that is different, that is outside the box, that does things in ways you would not expect them to be done, this game manages to do that well. I do, however, think that it suffers compared to other games of its ilk, adventure-type games. Things like Sleeping Gods. This game suffers, in my opinion, tremendously compared to something like Sleeping Gods, which has more robust mechanisms, has better writing, has more stories, more to explore, and it is not just one board, so to speak. But for younger kids, or not younger kids, but kids and adults playing together, I think this is very light in its, the strategy and the things you're attempting to do are very, very straightforward and light. And I think it might make for an interesting adventure game for that crowd. For me, yes, I was a bit disappointed. I was lacking the excitement. I was lacking the great writing, the sort of twists and turns, right? That wasn't really happening. That wasn't there. At no point did I, gasp while reading this book. It's just, that wasn't going to be there for me. So overall, I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. I think for innovation, it deserves a lot of praise for managing to streamline a lot of things in cool ways. But as far as a particularly engaging game with a great story and great discoverability, that wasn't there as much for me. So there you go. Like I said, 6 out of 10 from me for The Adventures of Robin Hood. Perhaps it's one you are going to really enjoy. And if so, then by all means, give it a shot. So there you go, everybody. That's it for me. My name is Z Garcia. I'll see you on the next one.